welcome to Project Brupeg. It's been a chaotic couple of weeks. Thank you for all your lovely support and comments with little Moran, our stray, passing away. You'll notice on Project Brupeg, animals come and go. We consider it an incredibly amazing privilege to be able to look after an animal, whatever animal that is. It was an amazing time with Moran. So in this episode you'll see what was happening around the time that happened. It's chaos, organised chaos coming up to the launch. We're starting to get really excited, nervous, and so appreciative of all your support and comments. It's amazing. Thanks guys for getting us here, and hopefully in the not too distant future we'll be out there.
One thing's true, never ask for nothing more than you. Think about it. If I could, I would be the...
We're a Kiwi couple living in Australia who brought a 57-foot steel trawler after she sunk in a flood and was pulled from the sea. We're now bringing her back to life. We're on to the finishing jobs after working on her for the last 6 years to refit and get her ready for launch as soon as possible. Brupeg is rebuilt by us with volunteers funded by Patreons and viewers, and we spend every cent we have to make sure that she's ready. She's fueled by veggie oil, diesel, solar and wind power to do research, projects and expeditions to remote places like Antarctica and the Northwest Passage. She'll be crewed by supporters from around the world. Welcome aboard.
Thanks everyone for all your lovely support with the passing of our lovely little stray, Moran. It was never about us having another pet, it was about looking after this lovely little stray. Decided that she was having us. So I'm so glad that she went peacefully. You'll find on Brupeg animals come and go. For us, animals are a big part of our life, and we love to help them whenever we can. And it may seem a little odd sometimes, you know, like a stray being here for 1.5 years. She chose us, so she had her freedom. And we negotiated when we could take her to the vet for her molars, which is why she was in the vet, because she had abscessed molars and it was been so painful. And in the end we thought, yeah, maybe she does want to actually come with us. So we started heading down that road with her, and if not, we were hoping to be able to rehome her. We didn't have an idea that she was as sick as she was. We knew she was unwell, but not quite that sick. So I'm just so glad she went peacefully, and she was so gorgeous to have around. A tough little chick with a heart of gold. Actually, she's really affected me. So it's been a stormy and cryy week. I'm so grateful she made her home with us. And animals will come and go, and we'll take care of them whenever we can. That's just the ethos of Brupeg. We're right in the thick of trying to get launched, the last big burst of jobs, trying to get ready for the possibility of timing for Stu coming back through from up in the reef to give us a hand if he's able to. So our head is kind of in that, and we realise it's actually something really to celebrate, and we haven't been in that headspace at all, so we're kind of adjusting over to that. So now that we're both feeling a little bit stronger and better, we're starting to get our head around what do we do for the launch. It could potentially be quite a lot of people and a real celebration. So we do know that we're doing it online. We're going to be with you guys online. You can just join us and watch the whole thing. We're going to be hanging in the straps for a while, checking there's no leaks, checking on our welds, checking, you know, bits and pieces, checking that things start up, that things stop once they've been started. So it'll be over a period of a couple of hours probably, but we're starting to feel like we're on the home stretch. Amazing. And thanks guys, there's so many gorgeous comments from all your lovely viewers. It's just amazing. We're really excited. So we'll keep you posted. Enjoy the episode. It is chaotic as these last 2 weeks have been, and I anticipate the next 4 weeks will be. So thanks guys for all your lovely support.
Tomorrow, yeah. Oh, if I could
One of the things we uncovered in our cleanup was a bin of hydraulic parts donated to us by our mate Gordon. These are proportioning valves and a bunch of other things that you'd use in a hydraulic system. Probably going to be using these on the crane and on the wing winches.
Yay! Finally! The cleanup under the hull. Oh my gosh, it's a fair bit to clean out and a lot of sand to collect to be able to do the entirety of the hull. There's a few more weeks of work ahead. We're getting there.
But there is no need for sorrow, 'cause I will be with you every second of my life. Sometimes it's just another day to get through, but it's not easy when you're blind from the truth. Oh, darling, let me be your mountain, 'cause it is my goal. Oh, I wanna be with you every second I got. Ooh, I got. Gonna make it alright. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Even if you're down under the ocean floor, yeah, I'm gonna make it alright. Ooh, baby, don't cry. Don't cry. 'Cause there's always a tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, and if I could fly, yeah, I would be with you every second of my life.
Welcome to Project Brupeg. We're coming up to the launch, and anyone who doesn't know about us or has forgotten, remember we're building this on a shoestring, and that has implications. And one of those implications is jobs get done in accordance with the help we have available at the time, or the resources we have, the money or the parts. So we have chopped and changed over the last 6 years jobs that we would have rather have done from the beginning to the end and have them complete. But we haven't been able to, and it's one of the things that has driven Damien and me crazy, but we've adjusted and we've learned to be more flexible in our mind. Another implication is that it's always a mess. Anyone who's built a house or a boat or anything and lived on it, you'll know what it's like. It's really hard. If you have a wee look around, just what I'm standing around right now, there's stuff everywhere. There's, whether it's work clothes in the middle of getting dried, or it's cat boxes getting ready for her trip into the vet tomorrow for her operation. It's oil and parts about to go down into the engine bay. So Dame is working on getting the last bits of the engine bay blasted on the bottom, underneath the engine, around that part. And then we'll paint that, and then everything goes into drawers, and we'll find spaces for them. But what we thought we might do is show you some of the main jobs coming up to the launch that we have to have done. And we thought we'd start with the blasting. There's a bit of blasting around the boat, and one of my pet peeves, and I'm sure Damien's as well, people might not know, but when we first built this structure above me, we were travelling from Brisbane up to Bundaberg here. End of the weekend we had travelled up from Brisbane to where we are here on the coast, 5 hours, and we'd do the weekend and then we'd go back and do a full week's work, and then we'd come back up, and we were alternating like that for about a year and a half. It was really hard and tiring, but we had to get these panels on because they were being delivered at that time. What we didn't know, there was a freak storm coming, and we had to go back south, and we couldn't leave them just sitting because there were boats beside us, lovely shiny white boats, which if they'd slipped off or blown off or whatever would have done a lot of damage, and of course we wouldn't have wanted that. So we ran around welding them on, tacking them on for a couple of hours before we left. And the next week we came up, a similar thing happened, and we had to weld them down properly. So part of it is that we were learning how to weld. Dane was learning how to weld overhead and all of that, but also we were in a mad rush, so some of the welds weren't done very well. So we can't leave them because they'll crack. You know, there's a lot of torsion when you're moving through the water, and they can crack. So I'll show you up here. There's not all of them. It's definitely not all of them, but it's some of them. This one here, you can see here. There's lots of little holes. Little pit holes. It's just going to be rusting right through that weld. It's not good enough, so we're going to have to cut that out. So we're going to plasma gouge it out. We'll weld it, we'll blast it, and repaint. So there's that one there, and right along. You can see this one by the doors here. Everything else looks okay. There's enough weld. It's penetrated deep enough, and it's not rusting through with little pinholes. The pinholes are the thing that worry me, is because that's where the rust starts from. Another implication of doing multiple jobs when we possibly can on a budget, a very small budget, is sometimes you forget things. So we actually forgot to blast part of the vents. These vents, for anyone who doesn't know, are the engine bay vents. If you look, there's a hole here. There's 4 of these on the side of the boat, and they vent up out here. And the purpose of this is the ventilation for the engine bay. It's a hidden thing that Dame did. I thought it was a brilliant idea. But we blasted the whole thing, and we forgot the middle. So you can see it's rust. This is what it looks like. We painted thinking for some reason we painted it, undercoated it, painted it, thinking that it was ready to go. And this is what happens. You can see the paint. The rust has come through the paint where we've obviously missed it. So we're going to
paint it over top of mill scale.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
So we actually completely forgot to do it all together.
Yeah.
So okay, mill scale, amazing. So we have to blast everything else is done. We just have to blast the interior of each one of these. So there's 4 of those. So we'll get those done. We haven't quite finished the door. That's how I open it. You can see here, we moved away from finishing this job, which we would have loved to have been able to do. But this needs to, tigged, tidied up. More blasting. You can see the doubler here needs blasting. It needs an extra line of weld right around. Then we'll blast these. This needs blasting. I'm thinking we'll take the arms off to blast, but I'm not sure. We'll be in the yard when we do this. Anything else that we need to re-blast we'll do. So there's a wee bit there to do. Oh, come downstairs with me and I'll show you the whole work we've got to blast. So this is the blasting. So just out of the bag, if you look up there, you can see the bung. We just need to blast these little spots. If you look above, you can see there's little bits of spots, rust coming through. Nothing serious, it's all surface, but we'll probably give that a little look over with the blaster. And I'll show you around here. We get a lot of inquiries, and rightly so, going to Antarctica or doing ice work anywhere like Arctic or anything, you can't really have something like this. Is our cooling system for the motor. This is coming off, but we'll haul out again. So because of COVID, we're not going to get to where we wanted to go very fast. Everything is a wee bit slowed down around the world, as everyone knows, and we're included in that. So this is really great cooling for when you're in tropical areas or subtropical areas. The sea is normally quite warm. So having a lot of area under the boat like this to cool everything is great. So we're going to keep it on because we're thinking we'll be in Australia for longer than we thought. And then we will haul out and do what we call our ice mods, which is everything we need to do to go to Antarctica. So that includes redoing the cooling system, cutting it off and putting an internal system in. We're hoping to have a system that's cooled by the outside. It'll be flush with the hull, but we'll talk more about that later in another episode. But hauling out, we'll probably be out for, we think, 2 to 3 months. We're strengthening the hull, we're doing some other work around it, so we'll keep you updated about that. You can see here the doubler on the side needs blasting. Over here, this is the first panel that needs blasting. So these are all complete, ready to go. They just need a good blast. We've got some already blasted and undercoated here. This is one that needs doing. We did a little bit of pad welding up here on the front. That needs to be blasted back to bare steel as well and painted. If you look around me here, this is Dame's magical sand drying area. We're getting enough sand to do all this blasting. It's going to take We think 1 IBC at least, and we're thinking we're aiming for 1.5 IBCs full of dry filtered sand, and that'll go through our blaster. So these ones have already been done, but I'm thinking we might redo this one. There's a little bit of surface rust, which I'd like to take back down to bare. Along the keel, you can see there's some areas there where it's just over time a bit of surface rust has developed. We'll be blasting that back to bare steel. You can see it really well over here.
I think a lot of that's oil actually.
Yeah, quite a bit, but there's a bit of
spot marks.
Spot in there, and there's a little panel in there behind our bear keg water draining system. Again, the other doubler, the other stabiliser needs doing, and this big panel here. So, and there'll be little other spot bits around as we do the hull work. We'll be in those bays over there, one of those bays, and we'll be able to be as messy as we want, which is really great because we're always trying to be so tidy in the yard. You can see the transom here at the back. There's the layers of paint. It's just worn off over time as we've moved things up and down off the back of the boat. That's something we just accepted we'd do at the last minute. And we'll make sure the paint's really good on there, nice and thick, because that is a high use area. I would like to actually put some stainless panelling on there to protect that area. The top layer of grey we're going to sand blast back by standing back from it and just taking that surface paint off down to the undercoat, and then we'll spot blast anywhere that looks like it's got rust coming through and then redo it. So just a reminder too, at the back here there will be a dive platform. It's one of the jobs we'll do in the water. We've got lots of engineering jobs over the next year to do while we're floating around in gorgeous spots. We're going to use the back deck as our engineering area. So we'll explain that. We've got a lovely donation from Ben down on the Gold Coast. He's bringing up this amazing huge stainless bench which we'll cut to size and put in the back. It'll be standing height, and that'll be our engineering work area at the back. We're going to have our stainless drawers underneath that for tools. So we're going to have the engine bay mechanical area workshop, and we'll have an engineering workshop on the back of the boat. The only issue we have is to contain any swarf or grinding dust or anything like that. So we're going to have sort of sheeting. So we're going to figure that out. We're going to have to be a bit creative, but we'll figure something out. But we'll talk about that in a later episode. But that is where we will actually build the dive platform, or we're going to use someone's shed or rent a little shed if we have to, because it's going to be sizable. It's a pretty big area, so it's going to be very cool. Also, we're going to have steps. You know when you have most boats, they have steps that are like a ladder that you just sort of walk down in there upright. We're not going to do that. We're going to have steps you can walk down into the into the water with bars on the sides. It's going to be very comfortable walking in and out, because there's a lot of underwater work we'll be doing with different projects, so we want it to be really easy. Our endless sand drying and sieving.
This is going to be a tank that I'm building for the main engine, so this is going to be a coolant tank, and it'll be bolted to the roof of the engine room so that I can have a trap for any air bubbles in the system. So I want something that's quite high with plenty of capacity in there, so that it'll allow lots of coolant to go back into the engine and any air to eventually come back up into this tank. So that's something that we'll see in a future build. I found the tank and then modified it by getting some of these fittings. These are actually cam lock fittings for fire hoses, and I chopped one end off them and then figured out how to put them in, welded them in. So they're just aluminium MIG welded. Same as the rest of the tank, I think it's aluminium MIG weld.
And then you did a bit of a tidy up.
Yeah, gave it a bit of a blast. Pre the moratorium on sandblasting.
So that's one of 4 tanks going in the engine bay, isn't it?
Yeah, these are the others here.
This is all before launch. We've got to get these in.
Yeah, so this is our air compressor tank. So this is I think it's about 80 or 90 litre air compressor tank. I can't remember how many litres, something like that. 75 litres, there we go. And this is actually a propane tank, and it's ludicrously thick. It's like 8 or 10 mil thick. It's insane how thick this is. So
it's so perfect for its job.
Real strong for what we need. And then these 2 big tanks here, they previously were hydraulic oil tanks on Brupeg. They're 250 litres each, so there was half a tonne of hydraulic oil on the boat when we, capacity when we got it. These have been underwater, so they've got pinholes all over them. So they may not work. We don't know yet. We haven't pressure tested them, and we're probably almost certainly going to have to be doing a fair bit of welding to actually make them, watertight. but these are going to be our black water tanks, so holding tanks in the engine bay. So if they fail, the shit hits the fan because the ventilation fan's right next to it. So.
These are temporary. We don't want to use metal for holding tanks. They do corrode out, you know, the urine and everything. It's just too much for them. What we're going to be, this is temporary so we can get on the road. In the reef, you need to have holding tanks. You can't just dump into the reef. It's a protected area. So we also want to have holding tanks, and we go into marinas and things like that. With 6 people on board, it starts to add up, and we don't want to pollute. So these are temporary because they're easy, and we've got them here, and if they actually, we can airtight them, they'll be great. I'll show you along here a wee bit. So this scrap area here will be finished today. We're on the last of getting rid of the bits and pieces that we don't need to keep. We've decided on what we do. So we're going to, the ute right now is full of stuff we're taking to a dump. Anything that they can recycle, they take out of it, which is brilliant. So we'll empty that this morning, coming back and filling up with the last bits of this to take into the scrapyard tomorrow. We do that after we drop the cat. The cat's going in for her surgery. She's got some molars that have abscesses that have to come out, and we're hoping it's 2, but once they've done the x-rays they'll know how many. And they've said some cats, particularly a cat that's been a stray, not looked after for a few years, can sometimes need almost all of their teeth out. So we're hoping it's just the 2, but it may be more, but we'll keep you updated. But she goes in tomorrow morning. We drop her in tomorrow morning to see Amy, who's this lovely vet in town. And then we travel on to the scrapyard and we'll get rid of the last bits of the metal forever. So exciting. So a little bit of an overview about the blasting and the tanks, but there's other jobs we've got to do before we get in the water as well. We'll talk about them later.
Just yeah, spin it a bit. Yeah, that's it.
Hang on, I'm going to re-spin it.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep, spin it.
Okay, yep.
Of all the magic places in the world I've been to, this is where my heart is. Oh, you know it's true. No matter where I go, I'm coming home to you. Been walking down the street so many times, my feet know every brick and stone. Could wear a blindfold. No matter what I do, I'm coming home to you.
Hey, Fritz. It can't go over any further.
No, it's up against the hull. We have to come that way. Take that off square and put it against that wall.
It'll work. I'm assuming a bracket on the rib or something.
Well, it has to come out because we have to allow for the quite a lot of insulation on this wall. Yeah.
That rib probably, eh?
Probably the top of here or bolt to there.
Which means it's all of this for storage.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we've got something to hang our stuff on.
This is one of 2 ambulance cabinets that we found at the scrappy. So these are aluminium shelves and cupboards basically, with pretty cool little doors on them. You can sort of see dividers inside, nice hinges, decent latches, and if you get stuck inside, these latches can be opened from the inside, so we can't trap anybody in there, which is always a good feature. These are going, well, this one in particular is going into the freezer room, potentially. We had a bit of a measure up this morning. We think it's going to fit, so the plan is to trim this weird little sort of cornery angle type bit that there is at this end, and trim that off flush, and it'll make it square at both ends, and then it's going to fit spot on. Being aluminium, it's pretty easy to trim it with the router, so I'm going to be using the flush trim, bearing at the bottom, and that allows me just to not even bother with measuring or setting up anything. I can just put the flush trim straight on the side, and then we get a perfect edge cut.
I waited for someone to save.
I think the blood go down from my shoulders.
Yeah.
Something new. You drove us us both into a wall. I drive away into the night and I contemplate for a while. Don't you think for the people that pass me by, pack my stuff and leave sooner than this? Don't you think for the people that pass me by, pack my stuff and leave sooner than this? Don't you wish I would have been someone else? I wanna feel your gas without making a mess at you. Oh, won't you tell me something new? I wanna tell you something new.
Starting to get a fair bit organised. That's the entirety of our scrap steel pile now. It's mostly stainless and then a few really critical bits of other stuff. That's where it's all gone. It's amazing how much stuff was sitting up there.
There's 3 types of metal in here: the mild steel, the stainless, and the alloy. In the yard here, they build alloy boats. So we're just donating it to their scrap pile because they get paid for it.
I wish you all the best I can, and I stop myself for a while. I'm staying big.
Quite good. You can see we're starting to get a bit of sand going on. Just in the bottom there you can see the level. Does a bit of a whoopsie up and over the top there. Don't know how much that is. 300 litres, something like that maybe. Bit more in there now, starting to get full. It's up to that second line. Not quite halfway. It's pretty windy outside and we've just got back from a scrap run and we found that there's no power in the yard, so we can't run anything. Compressor is 3-phase electric, that's not going, and most of our hand tools are single-phase electric. Apparently it's about 10:30 at the moment. Apparently it's going to be off until around 1:30, so we had planned to do sandblasting inside the engine room this morning. We need the electric compressor to run while the petrol water blaster is running, so we can't do it with a power cut. Plan is we're going to start stripping that room out, make sure it's ready to go, settle the equipment up, and then pretty much just wait. We're just about ready to start blasting this room. It's getting pretty clean. A couple of things we have to do though. We have to protect the turbo. So diesel engines can run underwater, but you do need to make sure that the areas where water can get in are closed off, i.e. air intakes. In this case it's a turbo and then a few other bits and bobs. like the alternator over there needs to be protected because it's completely open, so we're going to go through and start doing that. Turbo sealed up tight, alternator removed, we're ready to start blasting. This is what I've been working towards. This is the sump, the lowest part of Brupeg. You can see basically the front of the Cummins right there, the workbench over that area there, and then straight down in front of the engine you've got the sump. That pipe by my foot just over here, that goes into the freezer room, so we can pump out that freezer room if it ever need be from this room. And yeah, this is where I need to deal with some rust that's been sitting there for a bit too long. We have sandblasted all of this previously, so I know the condition of the metal, but we need to get rid of that surface rust and then put another coat of paint over top. After a bit of a blast, it's getting certainly a lot cleaner, but we need to basically rip all of that bubbly paint out of there. It's got to be back to bare steel. Obviously it's a wee bit sandy at the minute, but you can see right over in that corner there, there's rust down in that rear corner, and then that corner there. These are also pads that are welded in, so whilst it looks like the rust is sticking out, it's actually a pad that the rust is on top of. So we need to get in there and just get rid of that rust so that we can sandblast it all back to bare steel. We can't have that sitting there. And then I'm actually going to use our fuel tank paint to coat this area, because this is an area that's going to get covered in rubbish, oil, water, dirt, you name it. So I want it as strong as we can make it. We have two options when it comes to the paint that I'm going to use. So I've got a single pack that's a fuel tank safe paint from KBS. It's an incredible paint. We've used that in our very Ford oil storage tanks. We also have the 2-pack Jotun tank guard, which is what we use in our water tanks. That's a fuel safe epoxy. I'm leaning towards the tank guard, and the only reason why I'm thinking of that is because it's so incredibly thick. The grey paint from KBS is a single pack, which is an amazing paint, incredibly hard, unbelievably robust, really, really good paint, but it's a thinner paint. The KBS, Jotun tank guard is like really thick. Each layer is like 1 millimetre thick, and it smooths out really well. So I'm thinking if I put that in that area there, it's going to help me keep that bilge cleaner for longer. As much as it probably doesn't look like it, I've actually cleaned the bottom off. So right down there under that sand is actually bare steel. Let's give this engine room a bit of a hose out, and you can sort of see what we end up with. We all have our vices. I have mine on the left. I didn't realise how much of a controversy that would be. I'm a right-handed person, so obviously using a vice on the right is much easier for me. However, a lot of people thought that we should have put the vice on the right and not on the left, and that was my bad. I didn't explain it. However, there's a very good reason we put it on the left. With the vice on the left-hand side of the bench, there's about 2 feet between the vice and the bulkhead. So we do have some room to hang things off this end. We can also rotate this vice and hang things over onto the bench. However, if we were to put a vice here, there's going to be a storage rack basically mounted in this area right here. Essentially a solid wall down here. So a vice here is going to be absolutely useless. We'll get absolutely nothing into the vice whatsoever. And that's why I didn't bother drilling holes. I didn't make any allowance for a vice here, because if I put it there, not only can I not use it, but I would always smack it because it sticks out basically into the middle of the walkway. You can sort of see between the lovely Commons and the side of the bench, you don't have a lot of room. if I go and stick a vice there, it's going to be right in the way. However, if you spin round, this vice here on the left hand side, it's quite usable. There's nothing in the way. We're not going to be putting anything that's going to get in the way. And then also, because you've got this tank down the bottom here, the walkway naturally curves away from the vice. So as you walk around, there's very little chance you're going to smack into it. And so ends the great vice gate drama of 2021. This is going to be fun. Introducing the yellow hat of safety. One thing we noticed after Jess's bop on the head with a clamp was we were kind of taking too many risks, so we decided to put these hats on everybody that go into the awkward places of the boat. We also found it speeds up work, so when we were walking around in the engine room, because we don't have full headroom, we were walking really carefully and going slow. With this, we can just speed up how we're walking in there, and it actually makes the jobs faster.
Done. Thanks to everyone who suggested a helmet of some kind or another. There are some great ideas. It's just brilliant.
All this time you thought we'd never pay the price. In the game of love, you have to roll the dice. And my heart got 7 years to life. I got 7 years to life.
Looking resplendent. Painted floors. I'm pretty chuffed with that. First bite at the cherry. Some areas will need another go, just because they need a bit more paint. But that's come up really nice. There's a couple of areas I still need to do. Down underneath the prop shaft, you can still see it's the old sort of, stained paint and so on. I've got to deal with that. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty chuffed with that. That's come up good. Time to start loading tools into that room now.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm Mel, this is John.
Hi.
Coming up the stairs. Hi, lovely to meet you.
Was it John, was it?
Yes, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Oh, how cool is this?
And then of course, being Damien, he decided it was time to do the robot. And all the chaos and sadness this week, there was one rock, and his name was Bruce. You've been an incredible, stable influence this week, Bruce, and so supportive. Thank you, and thank you for all your work and all that you've donated, all those tools that you found. Incredible. Thank you.
Because you're planning on spending a lot of time down in the Arctic, aren't you?
Yeah.
Antarctic.
Yeah. So every window has to be double glazed so we don't lose too much heat. But we're thinking with these big ones here of actually just putting a panel of polystyrene in on 2 of them and just get rid of the window as an equation.
When I sailed down a Parramatta town where the river runs the street.
This is the load of tools that Bruce has found for us. There's everything you can think of. There's circlet pliers and hacksaws and a million what do we got? O-rings and bushes and
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Dozens of them.
There's only 47,000 zip ties in that box. Yeah, air staplers, nailers. There's a part of a water maker. There's an air jack. There's so much stuff here. It's awesome.
There's a whole. Oh, this is really got my thing. And I reckon you'll use that. That's a brand new 12 volt clutch, double belt clutch.
Oh wow.
To obviously screw on the end of a motor or something or other for a belt drive on
Yeah,
something.
like if you needed to put, say, a hydraulic pump on a Cummins and
Yeah.
have it switch on and off.
You got
something
2
like
of them.
that.
You got
Oh,
2
brilliant.
brand new ones.
While Damien was on board dealing with food poisoning, Bruce was checking the tanks and was going to pressure test them when he found that they were just too corroded.
They've obviously been pretty substantial in their day, but if you have a look at this, so there's here again. There's another one there. So that's just in one side. Yeah, see this here? You'd be chasing that for an hour or so more just to get that filled with TIG.
Yeah, gosh, I don't think it's worth it at all.
Yeah, see this seam along here is all completely rotted out.
Oh, I'm worried about it being on that welder, so...
Yeah, well I think if you started to TIG there, what's going to happen is this is probably a bit of it concealed and it's going to hello.
Sorry, right in your face. Bruce has been looking at these tanks and we were thinking of pressure testing, but I don't think we should bother.
I think it would be pressure testing a sieve.
Yes, it would be, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I have been. I feel slim. Yeah, thanks. That's what I thought.
Dane got food poisoning last night.
Yeah.
So he was down for the count, not quite right yet, hence the bowl. But you're holding down food. You okay?
I feel ish. Okay.
Yeah, I just saw you sort of start to fade there. Just maybe take it slow.
I was pretty crap this morning.
Yeah.
Couldn't sleep all night and
Takes a lot for you to
stop.
Yeah. So just rest, okay? Look at things like pretty tools. Baby. My darling. I know. Hey darling. It's okay, honey. Hey baby. The vet just phoned. Moran went into surgery a little while ago, and when she went under anaesthetic, she stopped breathing, and they did a chest X-ray to find out why. And she has a tumour on her heart and fluid in her lungs, and so the most humane thing is to not wake up. She may not have a very good quality of life for however short time would be left, and it would be mean. So we're doing that now. So, I hope you want my little sweetheart. Thank you, little Moran, for all your lovely time with us. We're so glad that you're peaceful and at rest. I think you've got a meditating cat beside you. She's so cute.
I was scratching her on his head and she just lays into me.
Heard you want to leave this place where we grew up. This old town, just put it all behind. Remember you and I would always find somewhere to hide when we were kids, so we could see and hear the water run. The river's gonna cry when you're gone. Hanging on, waiting for your call. Seems like time